Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Fitness Uncovered podcast. In this episode, we had Mr. Danny Mantranga from San Francisco, California, straight on Zoom with us, join us as a guest. We had a very good time, asked him a lot of questions, kind of a little of a rapid fire in the end. A lot of good information. Hope you guys enjoy it. Definitely gonna learn a lot.
It is comedic too.
Yeah, very funny guy, very cool guy, kept it super cool for us. Very flexible with the timing and everything. So hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
All right, so we have a very special guest today, and I'm actually going to let him introduce himself, and then we'll talk about how we found him.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Danny Mantranga. I've been personal training and kind of meandering my way through making fitness and health content for over a decade now, which is pretty nuts to say. I've been into fitness since I was like 16. I was actually into nutrition before I even got into training. Just something that I was fascinated by, learning about how the foods we eat can influence the way we feel, the way we age, our ability to prevent disease. So I have posts on the bodybuilding.com forums, circa 2011, 2012, as some little 130-pound nerd trying to figure out what supplements to take to live healthy. And so I actually kind of went from a longevity perspective into a performance perspective, into a bodybuilding and powerlifting kind of view of things. And throughout this, decade plus journey, I've tried and failed at pretty much every avenue of fitness and nutrition you can think of, and pieced together what works well for me, what works well for the clients I work with online, the clients and patients that come to my studio. And really, I'm just kind of on this journey exploring. There's a bunch of certifications, there's a bunch of qualifications, but I'm still in student mode, white belt mode, learning all the time. And I love fitness because it is a space of like perpetual improvement. And even Mr. Olympia can find things that he doesn't like about his physique or ways that he can improve. The top athletes in the world are never satisfied. So, I look at myself as a lifelong white belt who stumbled into what I think is the best hobby you could ever have, which is getting in shape. And fortunately, people were willing to pay me to help them do the same. So, that's kind of who I am and what I do.
That was a great.
That is a great explanation.
Great explanation for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I actually messaged Danny about, I want to say like 4 months ago or something, trying to get him to come on the podcast.
It was right after Phoenix.
Yeah, it was right after Phoenix. Obviously, he's a busy man, so we've been kind of planning it since then, and we finally got him on. I guess we should also kind of introduce ourselves a little bit. Obviously also so that you have a little bit more information. So my name is Andres Corrales. I'm also a coach. I actually also went to school for physical therapy assistant. I'm not currently working as a PTA, but it has really fortified the way that I can actually deliver results to people and feel a lot more comfortable working with people, because obviously a lot of people are dealing with injuries, pain, all these sorts of
Absolutely
not wanted symptoms and things like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Now I'm doing online coaching as well as I'm still doing in person. And obviously the podcast is taking up a little bit of that time as well.
Well, I'm Nick Barbosa. I've been a trainer here in South Florida for a good like 4 years now. Now we both all share a certification that kind of helps us treat more of the pain side of things. So that's more of where I'm trying to work with, as well as more of the pain side of the population. I share the facility with a chiropractor, which certainly helps in that aspect. And then, I also do online training, in-person training. Try to do the best that I can with the content, taking inspiration a lot of times from you as well. And then, I think that's it.
Sure. And my name is Jose Colon, and I've been in the industry for 13 plus years. Have a background in nutrition and dietetics from Florida International University. And I share a lot, as you were talking about your interest in how you got into the, where you are now. Like I also got into bodybuilding and powerlifting and CrossFit and nutrition. And so as you were speaking, I was just like, yeah, I think that's kind of what happens when you've been here for a long time. You kind of just continue to learn and improve and grab things from here and there from each methodology or each sport that we practice, and we can implement into our clients and ourselves. And we never get bored. I never get bored, certainly with this career.
Oh, absolutely. Me either. There's always something to learn. It's like a toolbox. You add some stuff in, maybe take some stuff out, and I've learned the most random stuff about fitness from watching sports, from hanging with other trainers, from doing certifications, from listening to podcasts. You pick up these little gems, and there's 300 million people in this country who don't like the way they look, or in some kind of pain, or recovering or rehabilitating from some kind of injury. And just knowing, like, okay, if I run into one of these people, and like, spoiler alert, that's everybody that you run into, you have something of value to add to them, whether it's adding value to their health, decreasing their pain, increasing their confidence. And, we're all on this journey called life, trying to make a living and have fun. And fitness is the best way. I figured out how to do both at the same time and also feel like I'm leaving a lasting impact. So it's always dope to sit down with other people who are either on the same path or currently making the same mistake, depending on how you look at it. But I always love talking shop, so I'm looking forward to it, boys.
Yes, this is great. It's definitely a space where the more people that you meet, because you were talking about how all of these different aspects and avenues of fitness that you've gone into, and I think that's the best way to learn. Because obviously, like when you're dealing with clients, you're not dealing with clients usually. I mean, there are some trainers that deal with very specific clients, but usually you get all sorts of people. You get the people that are a little bit older than the people that are really into, like, let's say, I don't know, CrossFit, and then just like power lifters or bodybuilders or whatever. And really, you have to take a very different approach, and not very different, but a different style of approach with each of them. So having all of those tools really helps for sure. And that's the only way to get it.
It is.
All right, so let's get into some of these questions that we got.
We're a bunch of stuff, man.
Yeah, fire, man. I'm as open a book as there can be for the most part.
Yeah, when I was talking to the guy, he was like, "Yeah, whatever, bro, whatever works for you, man, whatever works." He was just like down, super comfortable with it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll start off with this first one. We kind of already asked the first one, but so obviously there's a lot of things we're talking about learning, and how as you go through this career, you kind of pick things up and obviously learn from your mistakes. So if you were able to like go back and change 3 things, or at least 3 things that you know now that you wish you would have known earlier in your coaching career, what do you think? And you don't have to keep it strict to 3. You could be less or more.
So it's a good question. Okay. Good. 3 things I would go back and change that I've done, or maybe concepts that I believed that I would have been like, bro, that's dumb. Somebody should tell you that's exactly. Okay. First one, I'll go meta, bigger picture. I probably would not have gone to school. I really liked going to college. I learned a lot about a lot of different things. I met cool people, but the entire time I was in college, I was doing a pre-physical therapy major, just like you. And I was also training full time, like 40 hours a week. After a year of personal training, I was like full time, and I'm like, I love this. I'm getting paid to do this. I'm learning a lot doing this. And then it would get disrupted when I would have to go to class. And I'd be like, okay, shoot, I have to go to class. And I will not discount what I learned. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of valuable things about a lot of different, avenues of study and areas of study that helped me connect with people. But I've always had like a hunger for knowledge outside of fitness, which is, as you guys all know, working in coaching, you can't only relate to your clients on fitness. If that's the only side of your personality that they see, they're going to get pretty bored of you pretty quick, even in the online world. And so thankfully my education was not very expensive, so I was able to pay my way through it. But if I could go back and spend the time that I spent on my undergraduate degree, training more, just learning more, using the internet, doing the internships that I learned a lot from, making content, I probably have created a greater opportunity for myself to reach the people I want to reach. So that's probably the first thing I'd change. Second thing I'd change, I used to think like reverse dieting was like the coolest thing ever, and that you could like exponentially like just skyrocket your metabolic output, like literally just eat 50 more calories a week and you could eventually reach a TDEE of like 8,000, bro. Like you're fat because you don't eat enough. Like I actually believed this. It was pretty pervasive at the time in the fitness industry. And, the more I've studied metabolism, not necessarily nutrition, and definitely not like nutrition coaching, the more I'm like, okay, like reverse dieting is and I don't mean this to like dissuade anybody who's doing a reverse diet, who uses reverse diets, like it's really not necessary. And, you know, people's ability to like perpetually expand what it is that their metabolism can do, like it doesn't work like that. Like if somebody's eating in a deficit, they're seeing negative health implications from eating in a deficit, just put them back at maintenance. It's way healthier than like slowly getting there. And they're going to gain fat and weight no matter what. So like, let's not make promises we can't keep about how doing this slowly is somehow going to keep you lean. Let's just like level with people. And like, the more I've studied it from the outside looking in, I've gone like, man, every time I had a client like reverse diet successfully, it was just because they were tracking really shitty before. And when I gave them more calories, they were like, more calories. Well, you know, I don't want to fuck this up, so I better track really careful. And all of a sudden they were like getting leaner and eating more. And I was like, God, I'm such a genius. Like all these other coaches are so stupid. But really I was just getting lucky, and I didn't understand metabolism and nutrition. So I'd probably go back and tell that dude, like, you're not a wizard. You're just an idiot and you're getting lucky. And that would help me have helped more people. And then I think the third one, just in the spirit of like, you know, one about education, one about maybe practice, and then one about growth. You know, that like I would probably tell myself to not look at anybody in the fitness space as, you know, competition, because there really are so many people that need help. Like, it's like, dude, like if you actually think you're competing with these other trainers, you're crazy, because there's 300 million people out there that don't move and are overweight or are sick or in pain. So, you know, you can focus on these people and, oh, how am I going to outperform them, make better content than them, be better than them, be smarter than them, whatever. We're literally all on one giant team, and we're wildly outnumbered by the amount of people that need our help. So let's just work together, make each other better, and like, do not stress about who's above you or below you. Like, I got started really young, so I had this like chip on my shoulder, like, shit, I'm the young guy in the room and nobody takes me serious. I mean, for God's sake, when I started training, I had a fucking retainer and I couldn't vote. And so it's like, okay, like I was training my buddies at the gym before I had an ASM, you know, and then when I got an ASM, I thought I was the big kid on the block. And I was like, no, I'm the smallest, youngest, dumbest trainer here. This is fabulous. So, you know, just remember that you're not competing with people. You're on the same team. Those are the three things I would go back and change or tell myself or wish I learned earlier, that, you know, outside of tactics and, you know, misinformation or just, you know, stuff that's oftentimes sensationalized. Those are the big ones.
It's funny you say that, because I'm the youngest one here. These are both barely pretty much in their 30s. He's well into his 30s, and I'm 21. And about, what was it, 2 years ago, I didn't plan to do this. I just kind of fell out of school. And I started making content, started my business, started working with a chiropractor, got my certifications in check. And now it's like, do I really need to go back? It's like
It's always there if you want to. It ain't going anywhere.
Doesn't seem like necessary or desirable.
I think you think everything's looking up right now. You're like,
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it would.
So hear that's one of the things that would have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not because I have a vendetta against any of my teachers or the education system. It's just, it was something that I was already very passionate about studying, and the structure of school was a limiter. Mm-hmm. It took up more time. I could have studied on my own. And it was a great way to meet girls, though, I'll tell you, because I went to like an 80% female enrollment school. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. But even that got boring after a while.
Yeah, I can relate to that, because nutrition as a degree is mostly women.
Same with
therapy.
Yeah. It's a lot of women, a lot of nursing majors in the undergrad, a lot of PT majors, a lot of gals, a lot of chicks.
I think
every anatomy lab, I would have to cut every single cadaver, because nobody would want to do it. They'd be like, no, it's okay, you do it. That's kind of gross. I'd be like, this might be TMI, but I've cut up way more dead bodies than the average trainer, because I have an anatomy lab with 28 women and one other dude in a 30-person lab. And so it was always my turn to do the cadaver labs. So
it might come in handy.
Yes.
That experience.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I wanted to go back to the first thing you said too. Actually, two things, because I think we did a podcast also with John Russin, and we talked about briefly about what you mentioned, that we're all kind of in a team. And I think that's kind of what we started doing this, right? Because we noticed, or at least I've noticed, like even way before we started this podcast and way before we started together, the more coaches that I expose myself to, and not just coaches, but doctors and anybody in the healthcare industry, I strongly believe that even if there's something that you're disagreeing with that person, there's a lot to learn. And I think that it's all experience that you can kind of take advantage of, that somebody else has had the experience, and you can kind of almost like, I don't know, integrate it better. Yeah, integrate it into yourself without having to necessarily have that experience. And just like you said, there's so many people that need help, that need guidance in this field, because obviously, like for so many different reasons, obviously because of their lifestyle, but also because of that misinformation that you also briefly mentioned. So much of that is out there. And I think that as coaches, is not just helping people exercise, but also helping people navigate all of this information that's floating around.
Totally. And there's different ways to help people navigate it. And I think a lot of people online think the way to help is by find the person who is misinforming, oftentimes unintentionally, and just shit all over them, ridicule them, take their video, and like, they're going to be like, here's why seed oils are killing you. And then you jump in and you go, yeah, right, dumbass, here's why you're stupid. And like your video is just trashing them. Like even the people that are like, after you've done this long enough, like not only do you know when people are wrong, you know why they're wrong, you know how they're wrong, you know the study that they're misrepresenting. And like, it is not hard. I could have a lot more followers if I just destroyed all of the people whose content I saw, who I was like, you fucking idiot. But now I go like, you know what? Good try. I know where what you're trying to get at. I'm going to assume that it's not sinister. If I want to engage with you, I'm going to actually engage critically to try to get you to understand, not like why you're wrong, but like maybe why you should expand your thinking around this. Like you can even learn in this industry from people who you know are wrong. So that's something that's so remarkable about this, is when you stop looking at things as adversarial and every relationship as having the potential to like make you better or help the people you're working with or the people that you one day will work with, fitness becomes a much cooler place to hang out.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like we actually seek that. Like, I think that people should seek that, like disagreeing, like how can I come to a middle ground with somebody else? And I think that especially between healthcare practices, there's usually like, especially between modalities within the same healthcare practice, it's like, okay, if you're CrossFit, then you have to train this way. Or if you're a bodybuilder, then this is the right way of training. And it's like, it's a cult. And with nutrition, I think it's even worse. The doctor. Yeah, I mean,
we live in a super partisan world. Like you not to get super political, but like if you take one political belief that somebody has, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, I promise. But let's say like I have a rough understanding of how you feel about guns. I can safely assume how you feel about 9 other categories with a very high degree of accuracy for like 50% of the United States population. And a lot of that is because people feel the need to play a role. I have to hold these beliefs. That's not very scientific. So you look at a scientific community like training, like nutrition, exercise science. We should hold beliefs that maybe they don't conflict, but they allow us to, through different belief systems, actually learn more. We should not be like, well, I'm a bodybuilder, so I need a stringer tank top, a gallon jug, and I can only do like sets of 10 to 15 repetitions. I wear a belt constantly. I'm literally not allowed to take the belt off, bro. Like that's a thing. The CrossFit guy who's like, yeah, I really actually do like Reebok. It's totally a cool brand. I don't only wear it because of CrossFit. And yeah, I definitely have like a bunch of Rogue shit in my house. I pretty much only wear Rogue t-shirts. Yeah, I did keto, but now I'm more into like carnivore, and you know, like there's like, you can tell when somebody in fitness is trying to play the character the same way that you can tell when somebody in politics is trying to, you know, play the character. And the longer you spend, the more you realize, like, do you want to play a character, or do you just want to combine a variety of different things and integrate, to use your phrasing, a bunch of different things from different practitioners, different allied, it could be an allied health field. It could be an allied health behavior. Like, oh my gosh, imagine being a bodybuilder who also uses the sauna and does cardio, holy shit, like that's going to mess some people up. It's like, that's not part of the character. I think the sooner you get out of character in fitness and just start learning and practicing, applying scientific principles, applying logic, the sooner you'll actually, one, have fun with your fitness routine and be able to make friends and help people. If you just insist on playing the character that is the avenue that you think is best, those are the only people you'll ever be able to help. You'll only be able to communicate to the people who are already in that cult. And you know that because we all know how difficult it is to interface with people who are entrenched, like ideologically or politically. You don't want to be the fitness version of that. So I like what you're saying there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of all these populations, which ones are which is the one that you work with the most?
Middle-aged women. I really like working with middle-aged women, between like 35 to 60. They're managing and navigating a lot. They have a lot of stress. They have kids. They typically are putting their husbands, their kids, their jobs, whatever, before themselves. And so when they come to me, they're like, look, dude, I need to be a priority, and I'm having a hard time making myself one. Can you help me? And sometimes these are the most challenging clients to work with because they have the most going on. And they're also like one of the more underserved and underrepresented demographics. Sometimes they're going through menopause, which can be challenging. They've got 2 or 3 kids running around, which is challenging. They have a negative relationship with food. They've been exposed to so much bullshit from nutrition and supplements. Like I even had a chick come in today who was like, I'm mad at you. I'm like, why? She's like, because some girl on TikTok told me that if I'm gaining weight, I shouldn't be training arms because it's just going to make my arms fat. And I'm like, are you gaining weight? She's like, well, I have been. I'm like, well, yeah, because you haven't been eating on plan. And she's like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm like, well, if you're eating on plan, we can train whatever the hell you want. You're not going to bulk that area. And that's like, this is a client I've had for 8 months. She goes on TikTok. She's 40 years old. She gets hit with some bullshit. Those are the people that I find are getting hit with the most bullshit. They have been hit with the most bullshit when they have the hardest time making time for it. So, I've always loved training athletes. I love training baseball players. I love training football players. That stuff is fun. But the most rewarding is I found working with women between like 30 to 60 whose fitness is like precariously hanging by a thread and being like, look, I'm here to save you from the bullshit. Eat some protein, eat some fiber, lift some weights, get some steps, and heaven forbid, go to bed an hour earlier and watch what happens. It's not ever really that simple, but those are the people that I'm in the best position to help because of the experience I've had. So I that's who I like to work with. I'll take any client. I like the challenge, and I have a diverse kind of arsenal, as probably all of you do. If you do it for a couple of years, you get some skills. But those are the people I can help the most. So to me, that's the most fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in the beginning when I started training, it was I wanted to train a lot of athletes, and I still do, of course. Like I think that those kind of clients are very fun to train. But in terms of it being rewarding, I think that helping somebody like change their lifestyle, get rid of symptoms that they've been having for a while, and like really make a significant change that changes their quality of life over just making you 5 seconds faster on your 40 or
100%
squat like 5%. Like I think while those can be rewarding, obviously, especially if somebody's very passionate about what they're doing, I think it's much more rewarding seeing somebody like really get better quality of life or just get rid of pain that they've been having for a decade, and all of a sudden they're like, I didn't know what it felt like to not have pain. I think that can be extremely rewarding.
That's the best.
I agree, because my favorite demographic is middle-aged men.
Yeah,
and those people, when they grew up, they didn't do anything that had to do with the gym. Back in the day, when they were our age, people that just worked in were either the athletes or the bodybuilders.
That's it.
So they never saw any benefit of lifting or doing mobility training or doing cardio. It was just like, no, that's just what the bodybuilders do.
Yeah.
But now when they start integrating these things as they continue to get older, their quality of life gets better. So now they can enjoy their retirement. Let's say play golf. They actually swing the golf club much better, have a better swing, and be able to squat down to look at the turf and see if it's like, they have to hit it harder or hit it softer. And so it's awesome to hear things like that from people that never knew that weight training or physical training will benefit them in so many ways. It's not just about the look, but it's also about how you can perform in your daily life.
100%. And you guys probably know this because we're all on the younger side. It's a great way of like forecasting, okay, shit, I am going to get old one day. And that's really influenced how I behave, how I train, how I eat, how I sleep. Because I spend a lot of time with people who are over 60. And I've seen the way the body ages if you don't take care of it. And that has just been such a gift for me. You learn a lot through your own suffering or through other people's suffering. And having had exposure to that has made me even more passionate. So it's a gift that I didn't expect when I got into the industry, thinking all I wanted to do was like train baseball and football players.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What he just said made me think of something that is very, very true, that I feel like the more, and obviously like I've had a very wide array of people that I've gotten the chance to work with because of, physical therapy. So I've worked with significantly older clients, and obviously not just that are like dealing with some little pain, but like Parkinson's, post polio. Like I've worked with a good amount of different diagnoses. So it's very eye-opening to see like, okay, like if I don't, and I'm not saying like obviously with some of those things it's genetics and things like that, but it's very eye-opening like if you don't take care of yourself and if you're not active, and how different it is also, because like you could have the same diagnosis like a Parkinson's patient, and if somebody was sedentary their whole life versus somebody that was active, it is night and day how much better they can improve at that age if they were active throughout their whole life. So it's very, very eye-opening to be able to work with that kind of client, for sure.
For sure. So then what are the 3 biggest struggles that most of your clients face when starting their fitness journey?
Sure. So I think this is probably true for most people when they start a fitness journey. But the first is they have zero, and I know this isn't a fitness thing, this is a nutrition thing. But the first is they have almost zero nutritional literacy. And the average person knows more about diets than they do about calories. Like they could tell you, oh, dairy's bad. I heard dairy was bad. Oh, I heard gluten was bad. Isn't gluten bad? Oh, what about nightshades? And I'm like, well, how many calories do you eat? I have no idea. Okay, well, that's why you're fat. You're not fucking fat because of nightshades. You're fat because you don't know what a fucking calorie is. And so the most challenging thing, for sure, off the jump that I see, it's a problem across the board. People come to you, they know more wrong shit about nutrition than they do right shit. And so you're like, all right, not only do we have to unwind all of this crap that you hold deeply to be true based on zero evidence and zero formal training, but I also have to teach you some complicated shit. Because if I get you on the perfect program, fix all your aches and pains, fix all the mobility restrictions I see, that'll be fine, but you'll still be fat. And most of the clients I work with are fat, or they start with me because they're fat. And, I could say overweight, I could say heavy. They call themselves fat. So, most general population individuals have no idea how they should be eating. They eat way more than they should. They don't understand how food volume affects satiety. They don't understand the satiety index of food. They just opt for, if it's yummy, I eat it. And I drink way too much alcohol on top of it. And like dialing that back in will be the thing that kills me, folks. Like that's my struggle. That's the hill I want to die on. I see every single one of these people out here eating tons of hyper palatable foods, having no understanding of like what protein is, drinking way too much alcohol, not lifting. And I'm like, I'm going to try to save every single one of you. Like, I know I can't, but I'm going to try. I'm going to die on that hill. And nutrition's the big one. The second one is like, you see this, you guys all know this, like a lot of immobility, like just shit mobility in the T-spine, terrible mobility in the shoulder, awful ankle mobility, like really restricted hip mobility. And most people have like at least one, if not multiple of those things. And so when they come to you, you have to kind of modify your resistance training and select for movements that allow you to take advantage of the mobility that they do have and not like expose the mobility that they don't have. Because if you're like, look at that terrible ankle mobility, let's pivot your program to like 3 weeks of FRC, just different stretches, foam rolling, boring ass mobility stuff, they're going to never come back. They're going to be like, yeah, that sucked. So you kind of have to just take the mobility limitations people have, get into that toolbox I mentioned, find exercises that will work for their current range of motion and limitations. And of course, pain. Like, oh my God, you guys all know this. Like, people can move perfect and have pain for no reason, because pain is 3 parts: bio, psycho, social. It's biological, sociological, and psychological. And most of the people that come to work with you are fucked up psychologically and sociologically and biologically. So you're like, well, I don't know why that would hurt. It kind of looked perfect. And then people will do something horribly and you're like, and they're like, it felt fine. And you're like, but what? And so like the perpetual puzzle that is just meeting somebody exactly where they're at, and just working with them for the first time, it gets easier. You get more confident, but you can always be surprised. So you got to stay on your toes. So I would say pain, mobility, and nutritional literacy are the big 3 things that I still on a daily basis have like struggles with pretty much every client.
I think you hit it on the nail with, like, especially for us, because we actually have all taken the FRC certification. And when we first took, at least when I first took it, I felt like I wanted everybody to do FRC. But
yeah, that's like, because they use if you don't have this, then you don't have a shoulder. If you don't even have a shoulder, bro. Like, I like FRC, don't get me wrong, but I'll dog the shit out of them because I spent my $900. I got my certification. I've been using it for 6 years, and it ain't all that the bag of chips. It's whatever. It's fucking moving your joints in a circle, bro. It's like, oh my God, we have this proprietary revolutionary system. It is actively moving your joints through their full range of motion and trying to restrict how much you recruit other joints. Everybody should be doing that all the time. We should always be doing that kind of movement. But if you make the whole program for a fat loss client about something like that, they're going to be so bored, because just moving your joints is kind of boring. So like, maybe, I know we got to do those shoulder cars, right? But like, maybe we can just do some Y raises and some pull downs and some, rear delt flies, and we'll actually end up moving the joint ostensibly through all the same positions, but we'll also get some loading into it, which, as you guys know, you can wiggle a joint all you want. If you never load it, you're probably not going to maintain any of that mobility. So anyway, I cut you off.
No, it's exactly what you're saying. You just have to get people moving. And especially when they're just starting off, like, you can't get somebody that is really set on, like, okay, I want to get this thing done. And then you're going to throw them a bunch of just like super complicated exercises that they're not going to know how to perform right. Because obviously, like, these mobility exercises, they take a lot of intention. They take a lot of understanding of how to move your body. Like you said, like, you want to segregate that joint. So like, it's very difficult for somebody that doesn't even know how to do a regular cat-cow to do a segmented cat-cow, or to just like isolate their shoulder without any compensation coming from anywhere else. So at least, like, for me, especially working with like general population people, like with athletes, it's a little bit easier, but with the general population, you have to just get them to move. Just get them moving. And that's really gonna, like, then you can start trickling in some more maybe specific stuff. But I find that, like, you just have to get them through the door, get them to be consistent, because like you're saying, if not, they're just not going to come back.
Well, you have to pick things that have long levers. Like, if I pull on this lever, am I going to get anything out of it? The longer the lever, the greater return you get, right? Because of torque. So it's like, when I pull on the FRC lever of spinal segmentation for increasing mobility. So let's say we're doing like a joint by joint spinal segmentation to open up their T-spine. I don't get as much when I pull that lever as when I have them do a crunch on a yoga ball. When they do a crunch on a yoga ball, they go back over the yoga ball. They get a ton of flexion out of each vertebra. And when they come up, they crunch their weak ass abs. And they get sore and go, holy shit, I felt that. And I'm like, it's kind of 2 for 1, longer lever. So I don't really do that much spinal segmentation, because the passive stretch over the back of the ball opens things up pretty good. And I let them do some rotation when they row. And all of a sudden I get to use those concepts of, hey, it's important for people to move on a joint by joint basis. But when you don't have a lot of time with them, good luck using these super complex kind of all-encompassing paradigms. And I'm not trying to bag on FRC. It's really cool. But if you were to look at every client that walks through the door the way that they probably would want you to, you're not going to have that many clients, or you're going to have a very hard time getting a lot of clients. You'll just get people that maybe think that their mobility will never be good enough. And it's like, well, you've obviously never worked with hypermobile clients, because hypermobile people are a pain in the ass in their own regard. That's a whole nother ball game. And like, I remember when I found out about that, after FRC, and I was like, what do I do about this?
They didn't teach me this part.
No, well, it's like this, it doesn't really apply all the time.
Yeah, right. For the FRC specifically, I think there's a certain specific population you have to work with to be able to apply the concepts. And
if you want to apply like
100%.
purely FRC concepts,
and it's
very
usually
specific.
people, I'd say, that are like trying to be the best at something specific, as in like it's not for gym pop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you were like, I want to be hypermobile and I wasn't born with hypermobility, then yeah, hammer FRC for like 2 hours a day. Sucks for you though, because I was born hypermobile and I don't have to do shit. It's like the big calves of, bodybuilding. Like, oh, I was born with big calves. I imagine walking into a room of like bros who are like, oh, I'm going to be the best FRC dude on earth. And you're like, I was born hypermobile. I'm better than you at all this shit I don't have to try. Sucks to be you. It's like, it is an opportunity to grow through mobility and a mobility practice, which I think people need to do. But the more I train, the more I realize like full range of motion resistance training is in and of itself a great gateway for expanding mobility. And I get more when I pair those exercises with something like FRC than if I just do something like FRC.
Yeah.
Right. Then you made a great point. Take the concepts and use it as a toolbox to solve the problem. And especially when a lot of our clients can only come to us like maybe twice a week, 3 times.
Sometimes once.
Sometimes once a week for 30 minutes. We're not going to do the whole control articular rotation routine, which is.
Now remember, bro, every day you need to do that every day in the morning. I remember that. You're supposed to do those cars every day in the morning, and I did it for like 4 days, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. I was so motivated to do the whole routine. And I feel like that's how our clients are too. They're very motivated when they start. So we got to catch them, because I guarantee you there's very few people who did FRC that are still doing their morning cars every day, every joint. But I did it for 4 days. I was like, this is going to be games. 4 whole days. I kept that routine going. I even have the video somewhere on my Instagram in fast motion doing the whole thing.
I'll scroll down. Oh,
God.
You'll find it.
I'll find it.
All right, let's get through it. I know we're running kind of short on time.
I have a big question actually.
Shoot.
I've been a very big fan of your content for quite a bit now, since I've been following you, and that's one of the questions that I have is, number one, what is your thought process to create it as a fellow content creator myself? It's good to know. And then also, there's one part of your content that really resonates with me, which people here around town know, which is the anti-alcohol stuff, which I all the time as well. And every time you post it, I repost it because I agree with it so much. Where does that come from?
Alcoholic parents. Like, I've seen it, bro. I've seen it all. I've seen what alcohol does to people at an individual level. I've seen what alcohol does to people in a family level. My dad actually worked as a city attorney for multiple years in a small town where he handled conservatorships and guardianships. And he would take me to his law office very early in the day. This is before he got Parkinson's, probably from drinking too much alcohol, when he was still working. And I would see children my age in his office with him and their parents who were raging alcoholics, and their grandparents who were trying to get custody of these children. And I would see what growing up around too much alcohol or too much drugs can do to other people. And I saw it on my mom's side of the family, rampant alcohol abuse. So from the jump, there was no idea in my mind that this is nothing but good. But the crazy part about it was my dad made wine as a side hustle. He had a small vineyard. I grew up on a vineyard. I grew up around alcohol. It was never stigmatized. My dad would let me have a sip of alcohol from the time I was like 10. I could sip wine. And so I never went through a phase of rebelling like most kids do and being like, I got to go party. I got to go drink, because my parents said no. So I said yes. And so I kind of just was like, growing up, I would just be the sober guy who watched all of his friends drink. And if you are like always drinking in a social situation, I just challenge you one time, the next time, don't drink. Watch how people behave, and you'll be like, shit, do I do that? And you do. And it's fucking a damn shame, because if you do it every weekend, it's probably going to kill you and it will catch up to you. And there's so many justifications and equivocations. Oh, it's only a glass of wine. A glass of wine is not even bad. It's healthy. Oh, shut the fuck up. Eat a grape. You don't eat any, you don't give a shit about that. If you did, you'd eat a grape. You know what I mean? Like, if you want the benefits of wine, literally go eat like 9 grapes and save yourself 180 calories and all the alcohol. And so for me, it just comes from having lived it, having kind of lived like life without the obvious bias of like, I'm engaging in this negative behavior, so therefore it's obviously bad. It's obviously not bad. Like, I do that with weed. Like, weed's legal here, so sometimes I smoke a little too much weed and I go, yeah, but you know, I'm smart. I got my shit going, and I'm still like, I have a high testosterone. Like, it's obviously not that bad for me. I'm lying to myself. I know better than to smoke shit. Come on, guys. And like, I'm Mr. Healthy. Everything. But so if I know that I have that inside me, when I interface with people who are drinking all the time, I'm like, oh, that's cute. You're doing the same shit I do with weed and collecting baseball cards. You're justifying your behavior. And so like, we all do these harmful behaviors, but alcohol is the one that, you know, you don't have to do a whole lot of research to just be like alarmed at like, wow, that really is a negative health behavior that just has no positives besides like social lubrication. And for me, that's just a shitty trade-off. Like, we talked about long levers earlier. This is like the tiny ass lever that every time you pull it, you get a fucking pile of dog shit in your face. Yeah. And it's like, oh, great. I went out and drank, and then my next day was ass, and I ate like shit. And it's just like, man, for me, no thanks. And then in college, I trained clients at 5 a.m. every day. So I never could party. So I just didn't begin the habit. So I'm totally biased that way. So that's where the alcohol thing comes from. A lot of people hate me for it. I get tons of fucking negative comments on those posts from people who just don't want to hear it. I don't give a shit. I really don't. Like, people have been crapping on me on the internet for a decade. So like, you think I'm going to be upset because you disagree with me on what is clearly an opinion? You just weren't ready for it, baby. That's fine. Just keep it out of my DMs. You say whatever you want in the comments. Okay. But if you come into my DMs, I just like, I don't even read them. So like, you know, you're better off leaving shitty comments than leaving like DMs. But my fundamental opinion of alcohol came from seeing what it could do to people, seeing how negatively it affected me growing up, how negatively it affected people that I was around, people my dad generously exposed me to, so I could see how good I had it. A lot of those kids that were in those conservatorships had parents that were abusing a lot more than just alcohol. And so that was a great opportunity for me to be like, okay, 1, I got it pretty good. And 2, you got to really think before you fuck with drugs and alcohol. And then if you have like 4 brain cells, which, you know, if you don't drink every day, you probably do. You can literally just Google, is alcohol good for me? And like, every single health agency on planet Earth is going to be like, no. There is literally no, you know, health benefit to alcohol that you cannot get from just eating whatever it's distilled from. And so I feel like, in an effort to be inclusive, the fitness industry is like, yeah, go ahead, have your wine as long as it fits your macros. And for me, living in Sonoma County, where they produce the best wine in all of the United States, like, being Mr. Alcohol is bad for you is probably bad for business, but it's what I believe to be true. So I scream it from the rooftops. And maybe it's puritanical and borderline religious, but for me, it's just like, hey, I feel like there's just as much evidence that says exercise is good as there is that says regular alcohol consumption is bad. I'm just letting you know, do with it what you want. As for making content, the first thing I would say is, like, I don't think of myself as a content creator. I don't think of myself as an influencer. I don't like those terms. I am just a dude who knows some shit about fitness. And if I don't share it, I'm fucking up. Like, I have to share these thoughts, these ideas, because there's so many people that need it. And one dude flamed me in a comment once for referring to myself as an artist. I think it's easier to go, I make fitness content as an art product. I put it out there on a wall. Some people look at it and go, oh, I love that. And some people go, that's stupid. I hate it. And what helps me create more content is just knowing that I just have to keep putting things on the wall. The public has the ability to see it and think whatever they want of it. If they love it, let's not fly too high. If they hate it, let's not dip too low. My goal is to keep taking whatever comes through here, or whatever I see in the day-to-day. You guys probably turn your day-to-day work into content all the time. Like the things I talk about with my clients, 90% of my tweets, I'm like, oh shit, hold on. I just said something profound to you. Let me type that up. Okay, cool. Like literally that's how it works. So I am just doing my job, taking notes as I go, throwing it on the wall. And if people love it, awesome. If people don't, fuck, there we go again. and if I don't think of myself as an influencer, a content creator, it makes it even easier. And when the companies that like you like work with, you know, you're like, oh, I work with Legion, so I'm a Legion influencer. It's like, I bought that shit forever. I told people to take that shit before they paid me. And so like you can do this for a long time without ever like going full influencer. And that is like the biggest secret to making content, is just don't get absorbed by like the identity of a content creator. Maintain the identity of a trainer, of a coach, of an educator, and then pump that art out. Just pump it out, pump it out, pump it out. The minute I've started being like, I'm a creator, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a coach. I coach people and I make content about it. That's it. That has helped me out so much, because then when I'm fucking up, I'm just fucking up at communicating my expertise through this tube that is the content. If I'm a content creator and my content sucks, well, now I suck at my job. I'm like, what the hell? That happened fast. I don't suck at my job. I'm really good at my job. And sometimes I make content about it that's good. And sometimes I make content about it that literally makes people DM me. They want to murder me with a beer bottle. It's like, all right, like I'm just going to keep doing my job and turning some of it into content. And it just helps you navigate everything so much better, take yourself so much less seriously, be so much more, process based versus outcome based. So that's my content process is very simple. Do my job as well as I can. And all of a sudden the content just pops up. It's like, that make for some fire content, that thing that I said to that one client. So that's my very unscientific process.
I actually love that he said that, because our producer is standing right behind the camera. So he's gonna know what I'm talking about. But I feel like whenever I sit down to try to think of content to make, I blank out. But whenever I just create content based on what I'm already doing, like whether it's a workout that I'm performing, which is actually what we're doing right now, all the content that I'm making is just based on my workout of that day or whatever happens with my clients that day. And it's so much more organic, and it delivers so much easier. It delivers so much better whenever it's like that. Yeah, because if I sit there and I'm like, how can I make a catchy video about some type of content? Like, I'd never come up with something good when I just have to.
And don't you not like doing that anyway?
I hate it.
And so this is the other thing, dude. We're all gonna die. We're only gonna live for like 4,500 weeks if we're lucky. I'm not trying to spend a shit ton. And I grind. I work hard. I always have. I put in I get up at 4:30. I'm doing my cardio. I do the sauna. I do the cold plunge. I've done 25, probably 30,000 personal training sessions in 13 years. I got a degree. I got a bunch of certs. I made the videos, all of it. I put in all the time. I'm not saying don't work hard. You have to work hard to make good content. Just don't make it any harder than it has to be. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. You got to grind no matter what. But wouldn't you rather grind at the shit that you love and turn that into content? Like, people are like, well, how do I make a good video? It's like, what do you mean? Every time, every exercise you show a client is a potential video. Every time you have to pull a tool out of your toolbox, that's a potential video. You're making videos all day. You just don't have a camera on, or you're making written content all day. You're just not writing it down. I do the same thing. When I sit down, I'm like, all right, time to hammer out my next shot list. I'm like, blanking. Nah, got nothing. Cause I'm not a fucking I'm not a content creator that way. You know what I mean? I'm not a director. I'm not a storyboarder. It all comes when I'm like, oh shit, I got to make that into a video. Nice. Like I just said something like, God, that'd be a good video, to the point now where my clients will be like, should make a video about that. That was a good one. Like, okay, cool. So that's all I can really say about creating, and just, remember that even the bad ones help somebody. So just pump it out, crank it out. You're putting art into a space that, needs more of it. Just put it out there, help people, move on. I don't even read shit anymore half the time. I don't check my comments. Because sometimes being too invested in the opinions of what other people have to say can over influence what you're doing. So I just say create, and it'll stick eventually.
You just changed my whole perspective, because I'm now getting into this whole content creation stuff. And I was struggling too, because like Andres, when I sit down to think about content, it doesn't pop up. But in those situations when you're training a client and you explain something to them, you're like, oh shit, that was good. But I just don't write it down.
Yeah, no, and it's like
writing it down.
Because I have a studio, like I work with other really good trainers. Like they come to work every day at the studio, and it's like, oh, the studio says my brand, and it's like where I shoot my content, and it's like they make some content, they have some fun with it, but it's clearly not their thing. The same way it is my thing. They still make $100,000 because they're focused on training. They're still balling. They're golfing 4 or 5 days a week. They're kicking ass with their clients. When I'm in filming, they're out having fun. So the other thing is, like, not everybody has to be seen to be successful. And so, like, I only make as much content as I fucking want to. And when I don't want to make content, I'm not going to make content, because I got to go out and I got to actually live my life. I don't, like it for a lot of people, the biggest barrier to making content is believing that they're failing if they don't. And like, if you don't feel it, if it's not your thing, but you can just be a kick-ass in-person trainer, you can make a better living than 90% of the people that use. I would bet you that half of the fitness influencers that have over 100,000 followers make less than $100,000 a year, because a lot of them are just posting sexy selfies. And I bet you a lot of the best trainers don't make any fucking content at all. And so there are ways to be successful in fitness with or without making content, but you're probably not going to be good at either if you if you just hate the process of making it because you feel that you must to be successful. You should do it for the love of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. To get away a little bit from the content creation topic, you mentioned your sauna. I think I've seen it on your profile. Is it infrared sauna?
No, it's hot rock. I like the hot rock better.
So can you talk about that for a little bit? Because that was my question. Like, why you prefer hot rock, or what the
totally
benefits, etc.
So sauna has been used for thousands of years, right? How many years have they been using infrared? That's my opinion. I'm not so evidence-based that I'm like, but there's 4 studies that show that infrared works equally as well. It's like, dude, I like it hot. I like to sweat, and it's been used for thousands of years in this way. I don't even have to think about it. The infrared sauna data is just trying to, elevate infrared to be as good, if not slightly better than what has been working for 2,000 years. And what has been working for 2,000 years is a better experience for me because I sweat more. I can pour water over the rocks. I love the sound of the water hitting the rocks. I don't get that experience in an infrared. So I'm not against infrared. It's just like, okay, I've done enough studying to know that the best infrared saunas are like on par with the traditional saunas, but I know that there's more data around the traditional and I enjoyed that experience more. And that makes me more likely to do it. So it's like no brainer, get the traditional, throw it outside and get to using it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never even used an infrared sauna, but I definitely like the sauna.
I used to go into the sauna to pick up weights when I worked at
I could have sworn you were going to say to pick up chicks. I could have sworn you were going to say that.
Dude, I would go to the sauna and there would literally be like 20-pound dumbbells in the sauna. I'm like, this guy was probably doing some curls as he was.
Oh man, there are some. The number one reason I got one at my house is because I was sick of sauna tweakers, bro. There's tweakers in every public gym sauna.
Oh yeah.
Just like.
And you started, what was it that you
LA Fitness.
LA Fitness? Yeah, same.
24-hour fitness, baby. That's where I started.
Hours. Yeah, they're all kind of the same thing.
Oh yeah, they're all the same.
That experience, although you know what, and I always say this whenever this gets brought up, like I would not give that experience, like I wouldn't take it back. That was an amazing experience. I got so much exposure. Like that was my first job as a trainer in LA Fitness. I got so much exposure because there's so many, like obviously those companies are spending millions of dollars on marketing, so they have all of the potential clients right there for you. You don't even really have to work for it. Totally. And the amount of experience that you're able to get if you're working in a big box gym like that, even if it's a commercial gym, and obviously like it's not the most freedom that you get as a trainer, but I think that it's a really good place to start for most people.
Oh yeah, I could crank 200 sessions a month while I was doing 16 to 18 units a semester at 24. Because it was just like you had 15 to 20 guests coming in every day, and you would just be by the membership desk. They'd finish up a tour. They'd wave you in for the TO or the sales pitch handoff. We all know how it goes. Oh, Mrs. Jones. Wow. You joining the gym today? That's fantastic. I'm young, attractive, and have great energy. And you have a wallet that's open. This is going to be very easy. Like selling personal training when you're in your early 20s at a corporate gym is like fucking taking candy from a literal baby. But like, I know so many trainers that hated that experience because it sucks having a boss. It sucks having to follow rules. It sucks giving up most of the paycheck, So I think LA Fitness out here is called City Sports Club. They could only do half an hour sessions. It was like, what the hell? That was exactly so degrading. I only have half an hour. It's so agitating. Like there's so many things, but here I am now. I'm 28 years old. The best fucking years of my life, I was in that gym. I didn't know it though. And that's what they say. You don't know you're in the good days until the good days are gone. Those were the good old days, brother. If you can do a job where somebody takes 60% of what you're charging, you have to look somebody dead in the face and be like, I'd like you to buy 24 sessions for $1,600. And I'm going to get 300 of it today. And then I'm going to make $31 an hour for the next 25 hours, essentially splitting this with the gym. But I'm going to keep doing it because I love it. That's how you know you're in the right place. Like I tell people all the time, if you won't do personal training for free, then you're not going to be good. Like if you won't do it for, you have to be willing to do that. And that just, it made me better. Two, like, I don't want to say I'd go back. I wouldn't want to go back as my current self and train, but I would want to go back to the young man I was in that environment because I made some of the best friendships. I met some of the coolest people, and it ended up being like the number one best thing for me. And it probably kept me out of so much trouble. Like, I just like, I used to bash it, especially when I was there. But now I just like, I look back with nothing but smiles over that time because it just made me better.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for that experience. It really pushed me to learn more because that's where I ran into all of the problems. Like I said, if you're a personal trainer and you just have that NASM certification and like you're just coming off of that, you want to run into those issues. Like, of course, you could just go off and study more. But I think the best thing that you could do is get yourself in front of somebody and run into those issues where you're going to be like, I have no idea what to do here. Yeah. But then what you do is you just turn around and you go home that day and you do a little bit of research and get a little bit of information.
Or else you literally don't get paid. Like, that's the best part. Like, personal trainers are paid to perform. I tell this to people all the time because they come into the studio and they're like, wow, this was just like way better than physical therapy. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I get fired if you don't like it and you're paying me. When insurance pays, you don't give a shit if it sucks. But if you pay, you really care. So I have to figure this out. Like, I have to do something.
That's why my professors like me so much.
No, I totally agree because it was a great growth experience. Like you said, I would never go back either because you're going to get paid crap. But in those moments, that's when you grew the most, because you learn how to sell, you learn how to be more charismatic, you learn how to speak to people, you learn about all the problems that people face. Because in the beginning, you become a trainer and you're like, yeah, I'm going to teach everyone everything that I know, and I'm going to make them do exactly what I do and do all these cool exercises. But then you realize that not everyone is ready for these things. So now you have to change your perspective and be like, okay, I need to learn more. So it makes it more interesting too.
Yeah.
100%.
Takes a big difference knowing how to train yourself and then knowing how to coach someone through the same thing. It's like that's a completely different skill.
Yeah.
Totally is.
Absolutely. We have a ton more questions, but I know
Shoot them at me, rapid. I'll give you. We can go 10 more minutes if you want to do rapid fire.
Perfect. Rapid fire. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's go for it. Okay. So let's change this question up a little bit, but this is a good one. What is your kind of go-to step by step process when you first get a client? Like, client walks in the door, what's the first thing you say to them, to the last thing that you say to them whenever they're leaving?
Sure. Like when a client like very first shows up, I try to just get super clear on what it is that they want to accomplish and what it is that they think the barriers are to getting it done. And usually if you ask that question, right, people will tell you what their problem is. And then I'm immediately on meet them where they're at. I'm like, okay, let's focus on what makes sense. We'll do a light warm up, keep talking to me and tell me what your problems are. Okay, we're going to do some like basic movement patterns, some kind of squat, some type of press, some type of pull. I'm watching them, I'm assessing them while they're continuing to tell me what their problems are. And usually by like 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, I see what moves well. I see what does not move well. I see what needs to be strengthened. And I know, where in your nutrition and lifestyle you're having problems. Then I spend like the last 15 to 20 minutes with that person being like, look, here's how we need to attack this. Let's put a protocol together. And the last thing I usually tell people when they leave is like, it's probably going to take longer than you want, but if you don't quit, you'll get there.
Yeah. That's amazing because people love talking about themselves. So that's like, you just kind of give them an open door and just
let them talk about themselves. I don't need to show off with my overhead squat assessment. I'll learn more about you just by watching you do the movement patterns. Like if your squat looks like shit, well, there's a lot to work on there. And you can see a lot from like a squat, a cable row, a push up on a bar. You can just see so much more. And so I just get them moving right away.
Nice. Next question. Let's go into. I know we have a few coaches that listen to this podcast. So if you were talking to a brand new coach, what would be the best piece of advice that you think that you could give them?
Work with the clients that you're the most afraid of working with. Work with the demographic that you're the most intimidated by. For a lot of people, that's old people or people who are in pain. And like you guys all know, you can learn a ton from working with those people. So like whatever client you're like terrified of walking through that door, like, or clients that you're like, oh, I don't want to work with that kind of person, work with those kind of people. It will make you so much better because you probably don't like it because that's your weak spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Get uncomfortable. Yeah, 100%. That's definitely. Do you have any of these that you want to fire off real quick? I know that. And Jose, yours. Well, you wanted to ask some others.
A lot of those are yours, dude. So run it up.
All right. So, in your opinion, how has the fitness industry evolved over the course of your career? And what trends or shifts have you noticed?
Well, there's way more good coaches. There's a lot of people who really know their shit. Like the dialogue around protein and calories and, principles of resistance training and rest periods and recovery. Like there was a time like 7-8 years ago where knowing these foundational evidence-based principles was rare. Now I think it's common. And that to me is awesome. I think there's just, there's way more bullshit out there, but there's a lot of people who are capable of fighting it. And so like, that's unequivocally the best thing about fitness right now. There's a lot of really smart people who want to help.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that 100%.
So what do you think will be something that would differentiate a trainer nowadays, since a lot of these basics are pretty well known by now.
Being able to communicate them well, face to face, like an adult with a mild degree of persuasion. Anybody can make content that says, eat 0.6 to 1 grams per pound of body weight, train 3 to 5 times a week through a full range of motion progressively, and include some fiber, eat carbohydrates and, fats to preference, making sure that your calories are either here or there. Yeah, okay. The skill is in taking that and communicating that to people in a way that resonates with them. And a lot of coaches are starting online and struggling. And I think that the best thing you could probably do is take what you know and figure out how to communicate it simply so that you create the largest effect with the most people. So communication would be, I think, the succinct way to say it.
It's interesting you say that because, yeah, I see a lot of kids wanting to become online coaches first before ever training someone in person.
Yeah.
And to me, that doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how you have a person will have the balls to do that, because if you've never seen anyone in person and trained them in person or have any kind of knowledge, how can you put together a online program and make adjustments for that person from week to week, month to month, or years to years? That's something I can't understand yet.
I still struggle with that.
Yeah, you can. You guys all can. You guys all can understand it. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. You guys all know this because you probably all did it.
I know that is. Yeah.
Just this notion that when you first start something, like let's say it's personal training because you're into working out. I think you said it. When you first learn, you can't train clients the way that you train, right? Like when you show up, you're like, the way that I train is the way to train, dog. Like I got this. Then you show up and you're like, all right, everybody's doing Danny's workouts. And then you're like 2 weeks later, you're like, all right, Danny has no clients and everybody's hurt. And so clearly that doesn't work. Like those people are, they're there. They're just there online. You know what I mean? They're just there they're there with a fucking smartphone. And so they think that they're ready to coach online because they look up to somebody who coaches online and they coach themselves. So they think they know. And then they're going to start and get absolutely pummeled for like a year and quit. And that's why like 90% of trainers don't make it through a year because they think they've got it and they start thinking they've got it. And then when they find out they don't, they're not willing to accept that. So they just go like, people, it was too hard to get clients, or I didn't like the hours, or I didn't want to have to get up early. It's like, nah, your program sucked and you weren't open-minded and you weren't willing to change and take your lumps, but you wanted to ask other people to. So no wonder you had no clients.
I got one more question. It's running, right?
Yeah.
All right. So can you share with us your philosophy when it comes to strength and conditioning?
Yeah. So, well, you hit on the big one is and conditioning. So it is strength and conditioning, not strength and some cardio. It's strength and conditioning. So, the number one cause of death in the United States over the last 50 years has been cardiovascular disease. Definitely the number one cause of death for men. So I don't love doing cardio. I kind of hate it. Definitely not a fan of running. I've got like a weirdly muscular glutes and like weirdly short legs and like just shitty mechanics. So like every time I run, I'm not built for running. I'm built for sprinting and like quick cuts. Like put me in the slot. I'll dust you, bro. Like, like that's my thing. I can't run. I'm like a quick little jitterbug. So I like got away from cardio and then I realized my health went to shit real quick. So, Peter Attia has a great concept. It's like, think of your cardio like a triangle, like the base or pyramid. The base of the pyramid is your 10,000 steps, your zone 2, your base aerobic fitness. The peak of the pyramid is your sprint, your output. Like folks do a little cardio, like 150 minutes a week of walking or rolling on the bike, do a little bit of sprint work, just do something. Do not neglect the and conditioning part of strength and conditioning. If you do your conditioning, you'll be better at strength. As for strength work, I am like the biggest advocate for train compound movements through the fullest range of motion you reasonably can at a variety of different rep ranges to stimulate as much tissue, as much muscular architecture and machinery and cellular shit as you can. Throw the kitchen sink at it. Train close to failure, but not all the way to failure. don't quit, and you'll probably live really long with a shit ton of muscle and look like an athlete, feel like an athlete, move like an athlete. So that's my philosophy.
That right there.
Personally, how many
Great.
times a week do you train your
5.
conditioning and also
Ooh.
your weight training?
4 to 5 lifts a week, and I'm actually 2 days in a row of conditioning. So I'm on pace for 7 days of conditioning this week. Not to toot my own horn, but I'll be lucky to get 3 in a week. I like 3 conditioning sessions a week, 4 to 5 lifts a week, and then I walk the dog. The big one takes the most work, at least once a day, and I get 18 to 20,000 steps. So it's like I'm there, but if you ask me to race, I'm game. If you ask me to go on a run, I'm going to disappear mysteriously.
I think a lot of people don't really understand those benefits of the zone 2 and like the light cardio. And I think some of the best endurance, some of the best endurance athletes in the world advocate for the 85 to 90% of your training should be in that zone 2, even though they're competing in like the elite, like zone 5. But
Totally.
the zone 2 really will help you get better levels up in those. And by the way, when we're talking about zone 2, that just means really like 65 to 75%.
Can you talk when you're doing it? If you can talk when you're doing it, it's probably zone 2.
There you go. Exactly. Super beneficial.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, we actually ran over what we said we would do, but thank you, Danny, so much for giving us this time. Honestly, you're a hilarious dude and so much good information. I know our viewers are going to love this one. Thanks for having me, guys. It's your class acts across the board. I know that it takes 1 hour from me and 3 hours from you, 1, 1, and 1. So I appreciate you giving me the time to spread my message, reach your audience. And if I'm ever in South Florida, we'll link up for some not running. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, gentlemen. Have a good one.
Appreciate you.
Have a good day.
Have a good one.